The undead in this world have never stayed predictable for long. Bloaters swell until they burst, runners sprint like they never died. The Walker King is a fused mass of corpses, dormant until disturbed. Survivors who learned the rules watched them break. That's why today I'm breaking down the major Walker variants and where each came from, starting with the one that does nothing until it's too late: lurkers. The standard picture of a walker is a shuffling alarm, loud from 100 yards out. The lurker breaks that, staying frozen until you're close enough to touch it. That stillness is the entire threat. A corpse propped in a doorway, waiting on the 1 second your guard drops, beats a dozen clawing at a fence. A lurker looks identical to any dead thing slumped against a wall, committed for something just sitting there. Nothing about the wounds or posture gives it away. Proximity is the trigger, and a supply run guarantees it. This marked an early clean split fans drew in the original series, between a walker and one playing a longer game. One survivor learns this lesson when a lurker bites Alan's ankle as he carelessly walks past a body he ignored. Whether that earns its own category still gets argued. Nothing on screen explains why one corpse sits and another chases, so the reading stays a pattern, unconfirmed and argued. Follow it anyway. Stillness plus time built a trap, the world assembled by itself, nobody pulling strings yet. So this one wins by holding perfectly still. The far more common corpse does the opposite, and it turned wandering into its own kind of threat. Roamers. The walker that looks least dangerous one-on-one is also the one that overwhelms the walls built to stop it, because it never learned the one skill that keeps a corpse polite: staying put. A roamer's bite works exactly like any other walker's. Its origin story is the most boring one in the franchise. Something killed a person, reanimation did the rest, and it got up and started walking. It wanders forever, whatever direction its feet happen to point. Fans call it a roamer, the term used for the ordinary undead that drifts through the franchise. The still ones earn their reputation by holding a pose. Roamers earn theirs by holding nothing, drifting through fields and highways until numbers do what one bite never could. Survivors learn the rules of the apocalypse here first: quiet footsteps, controlled breathing. Most of the early rules get written against this walker, and enough of those rules eventually fail against something that stopped obeying them. The timing makes the theory obvious. The franchise needed a ruler before it could measure any monster, and the roamer became that ruler first. Boring gets copied, mutated, and weaponized, but it stays the standard. Give that same drifting corpse enough time in the wrong place, and the water starts doing something to it that walls and weapons never could. Bloaters. A walker can sit in swamp water for weeks and come out twice its size. Skin stretched so tight it looks ready to burst before you even touch it. That size is the whole story. Fermentation packs the body with gas and fluid until the corpse becomes a pressurized container of its own rot, and popping that container turns a simple extraction into a horror show. The Well Walker proved it during a rescue attempt. It split in half, guts and fluid everywhere, and nobody standing over it caught so much as a scratch. Charming, all things considered. The swelling looks like a new threat born from a fresh strain, but the dominant reading among fans lands plainer. The same virus, riding the same dead body, left in standing water long enough to ferment instead of rot cleanly. Discoloration turns the skin gray-green. The gut distends until walking becomes a stagger, and the smell alone gives one away long before it's close enough to matter. The clearest cases on record, a body left in a farm well and others rotting in swamp water, share one factor: weeks of submersion. The roamer already suggested how much the setting shapes a walker's behavior. The bloater takes that further. The setting may reshape what a walker's body becomes. No new strain required. Water bloats a corpse and slows it down. The next change makes a walker faster than its own instincts should allow, and starts letting it beat the one rule survivors trusted most: climbers. A walker can plant both hands on a 10-foot wall and haul itself over the top like someone breaking into their own house. That image cancels the one rule every community has staked its life on: build something solid, stay behind it, sleep. The bloater weaponized a corpse's death into a chemical cloud, decay itself as delivery system. Climbers weaponized decision-making instead, treating a locked gate as a problem with a solution. The surface explanation calls it decay firing muscle in a useful order. The behavior argues for something sharper. Climbers scale chain link and wood plank barricades built to keep the dead out. They turn door handles with intent, pick up dropped weapons and swing them with leverage, and plant both hands on a person's chest hard enough to put them on the ground. Alright, that's more coordination than some of the humans running from them. That reads as a body finding the one weak point in a design meant to have none. Fans argue whether this is real mutation or a corpse exploiting its own limbs and the terrain around it. The Commonwealth nearly lost its walls once to a variant that climbed them and unlocked the gate from inside. Fans have read that as less a fluke and more like a trend the world keeps repeating. The show made this explicit once the story moved past its early years, showing smarter variants tear through defenses that used to feel absolute. Every family that reinforced a fence and told their kids it would hold now has a reason to check that fence twice. Once a corpse can beat your walls, the last thing keeping you alive is your legs. And there is a walker that takes even that away: runners. The single rule that keeps most survivors breathing is speed. Outrun the dead, live to see tomorrow. Runners break that rule on contact, closing 100 feet of open ground before a sprinting adult finishes the thought, "I should probably move now." The climbers already proved a wall is just a suggestion. Runners prove distance is the same kind of suggestion, and losing both illusions back-to-back leaves survivors with fewer rules than they started the season with. Fans often treat runners as a late arrival, a variant that shows up once the world has had time to work on its dead, instead of one of the founding types from the outbreak's first year. Speed is the headline on the resume here. Legs built to keep moving long after everything else in the corpse has stopped working. Community shorthand calls them runners across the shows and the seasons, because the label describes the threat faster than any wiki entry could. The old math said outrun and survive. The new math says survive long enough to escape, a smaller, more desperate goal that fits in one panic-stricken sentence. Somewhere out there is a survivor who spent years trusting their legs, and one sprinting corpse just made that trust worthless. Fans still argue over why runners exist, even with the canon on record. The World Beyond epilogue and the Jenner recordings tie them to mutated wildfire strains, some turning naturally and some pushed along in French lab experiments. Some call it a fluke, one town's dead getting unlucky with muscle tissue. Others call it a trend, proof the corpses are getting faster every season. A smaller group calls it deliberate, and the lab experiments back that reading up. Speed is one way the world sharpens its corpses. Sometimes it skips the corpse completely and arms the ground around it instead. Environmental walkers. Hogweed sap blinded Aaron the moment he cut down the walkers overgrown with it, and the flowers underneath barely looked like a threat at all. That single image carries the whole category. Environmental walkers are bodies the terrain has taken over, corpses wrapped in whatever the local ecosystem had on hand. Hives, fungus, foliage thick enough to pass for a bush until it grabs an arm. Aaron's attack in Season 10 of the main series is the clearest documented case. Walkers overgrown with hogweed that left him blind and helpless until Negan washed the sap from his eyes. The setting did the damage. The corpse was just the delivery method. Survivors build their instincts around a specific shape: slow shuffle, gray skin, a groan carrying through trees. Environmental walkers erase that shape entirely. A mound of mud-caked undergrowth can be a body. A low hum drifting off a fence line can be a face waiting to turn toward you. The category stretches across bees, spores, vines, and standing water. Any hazard the land can grow on a corpse, which is why fans argue whether this counts as one true variant or bad luck with geography. Different regions, different hazards, point to the same pattern: a threat hidden inside scenery the group already trusts. This is the version of the apocalypse that runs on accident. The swamp rotted a body, the hogweed grew on one, and nobody with a plan touched either. Aaron paid for that accident with total blindness until Negan scrubbed the sap from his eyes. One more survivor learning the rules had shifted again without asking his permission. Bees and mud are hazards a walker stumbles into, but there are corners of this world where the hazard is the climate itself, and it starts shaping the dead season by season. Winter walkers. A frozen walker can survive longer than the person trying to outlast it. Cold stalls death instead of causing it, freezing muscle into something closer to a statue than a corpse, so a body that should have rotted away by spring is standing in January, joints stiff, jaw locked open. Survivors who learn the rules from swamp heat and bee stings watch those rules fail the moment the temperature drops. Frost cracks across gray skin like a slow spiderweb. Joint seize until a walker's stride turns into a stagger that looks almost harmless, right up until it finally corners someone it took 4 extra minutes to reach. Slower, and somehow still standing, snow muffles the groan that used to be the warning everyone relied on. Bodies buried in a storm resurface at the next thaw, decay paused, like the season hit pause without ever hitting play again. There's no single agreed moment this walker first showed up on screen, and some fans call it a look rather than a variant, since cold exposure is the whole explanation. Maybe that's fair. It still costs someone who trusted a slow walker to stay slow. So far, the world has done all the shaping and the dead have just been raw material. Then somebody documented a walker that appeared to be making decisions on behalf of other walkers. Protectors. Dr. Chauncey Everett spent his time in the dead sector cataloging walkers like a field researcher tracking a herd, and one variant broke every pattern he had logged. Protectors stay close to their own group, keeping its safety ahead of chasing anything moving nearby on two legs. That is a strange thing to write about a rotting body. Survivors spent the apocalypse learning that every corpse wants one thing, and that thing is you. A protector wants the herd around it, fed and clear of danger, which reads less like decay and more like devotion. The record calls this a unique kind of variant, and that phrasing carries weight. It signals something rare enough that nobody built a full case file. Just field notes describing one herd-like instinct inside a species usually defined by having none at all. Nothing in the documentation confirms real thought behind this. But follow the pattern anyway. Group preservation, restraint toward targets that don't threaten the herd, attention spent on its own kind instead of on you. That's a walker organizing itself with something close to purpose. The same trait every survivor since the first outbreak has struggled to hold onto in each other. Purpose aimed inward at a herd is unsettling enough. Aim that same patience outward at a single person with tracking and time behind it instead of instinct, and you get hunting, a pattern that, across the ocean, takes on a whole new shape. Stalkers. What the term points to is a walker that picks one target from a crowd and keeps closing until there's nowhere left to turn. Fans read that as predatory intent, sharper than anything the earlier herds showed. Those herds moved with shared purpose across open ground. The stalker pattern narrows that impulse to one person, one street, one exit. The name itself is a genuine mess, and it is worth saying so plainly. Fans have argued for years over whether stalker is an official designation, a fan nickname, or shorthand for a French variant cluster no published source has fully untangled. Nothing in the available material points to one clean scene where a walker earns that label. The consistent thread in discussions of stalkers is faster reactions, sustained pursuit, and a refusal to lose the scent once it locks on. The pattern fans describe splits from the aimless wander that defines ordinary walkers. An ordinary walker bumps into prey by accident. What the stalker label suggests is tracking a target, following through turns, and closing distance like it's running on memory. Survivors built their sense of safety on one rule: put distance between yourself and the corpse, and it forgets you exist. The stalker red breaks that rule, remembering exactly where you went and turning a clean escape into a countdown. Individual walkers getting smarter is one problem. Several of them stuck in the same wet, dark space for years is a different problem entirely, and one sewer produced something that stopped counting as a single body. The Walker King. Multiple corpses fuse into a single animal under New York, fast enough to close distance that should have saved you. This is where monster stops meaning one dead body with a new trick. The Walker King is a superorganism, several walkers grown into one mass of muscle and rot. Imagine the world's worst group hug, carrying exceptional strength and speed in one frame. For most of its existence, it does nothing at all. Dormancy is the baseline state here, and activity is the exception that gets people killed. The known encounter happened in New York's sewer system during the Dead City era. In an enclosed, wet space, nobody checks twice. Somebody walked through that tunnel trusting the rules that had kept them alive against every walker before, and those rules bought them nothing here. Canon does not spell out the chemistry of the fusion, but the pattern underneath it is hard to miss. This looks like lurkers, the stationary walkers that just sit and wait, surviving together in a cramped, damp pocket of the world for years until stillness stacked into something enormous. The least dramatic variant on the board, the one that barely moves, appears to be the raw material for one of the biggest things in the franchise. The idea divides opinion. Some find it absurd, others find it one of the most effective horror concepts in the series. Everything so far has an alibi: water, cold, mud, time, an accident of geography. The last one on the board has a paper trail and a person's name attached to it: burners. Killing a burner up close costs you skin before it costs you anything else. Cave the skull in with the standard kill move, and the blood that hits your arm burns like drain cleaner, fast and chemical. France produced this variant deep in the franchise's spin-off material, and it turns the most basic survival reflex into a liability. Earlier variants asked you to change your habits. Watch the mud, watch the cold, watch the water. A burner asks you to change the reflex itself. Getting close enough to put a blade through a skull, the move survivors drill until it's muscle memory, now means acid on bare skin. Someone burned by a burner's touch or blood needs a hot blade against the wound immediately. The burn keeps spreading through the tissue. A survivor who hesitates, loses a hand doing exactly what he was taught keeps him alive. Some fans call burners the most comic book variant in the lineup, and the biology backs them up. Cold slows a corpse down. Standing water rots it. Acid pumping through veins that stopped working weeks ago is a different category of problem. One no known natural process on Earth manufactures by accident. That's the whole French experimentation already cracked open. Variants that broke the old rules were already coming out of French labs, and then came the ones that burned. Acid in the blood is the point where weather stops being a believable explanation. Someone in France was working on the dead, and burners appear to be the result of experiments tied to the Primrose and Violet teams. Ampers. Ampers kill walkers and then eat them, tearing into flesh that already stopped rotting the normal way. Itself a low bar. That single behavior breaks every rule this video spent 11 sections building. Ampers surface in the Daryl Dixon era's French storyline, carrying a label that originated in France, not Georgia. Speed, strength, aggression, intelligence, durability. 5 traits stacked on one body, all present together, where earlier variants rarely combined this many at once. Compare that stack to what came before. A bloater got its bulk from stagnant water and gas. A shrieker got its scream from damaged vocal cords. A jumper got its leap from muscle memory the show never bothers to explain. The show's own logic points to weather and geography shaping those 3. No one designed them on purpose. They were accidents of environment. An amper carries a name. Dr. Lafleur, working in France, selected the traits that make an amper one of the most dangerous things on this entire list. The appetite for other walkers is the design's most disturbing detail. A predator that hunts its own kind. Fans argue over whether this variant saves the French storyline or breaks the show trying to justify it. That argument skips past the shift underneath it. Survivors learned one set of rules for how a corpse behaves, watched those rules bend through 11 kinds of walker, and just met one a person built on purpose. Most of the apocalypse, through this whole video, was an accident. Dr. Lafleur put his name on the file that ended that streak. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.